let's take a look at your view on the markets right now, because as I said earlier, yesterday we had some of those blue chip counters pulling back as the market deemed prices at this stage a little bit expensive, and a bit of a marginal uptick coming through to the marketplace today.
Well, if you look at it as we approach, the results were released by various companies, the KCB, Coop Bank, Housing Finance. So within the blue chip sector, it has been consistent performance, but this has also translated in higher prices at the bourse. And most people have adopted, like Alia was saying, the wait and see and the holding approach for the prices to slightly stabilize, and they're able to capitalize on the same. But you have to also factor in the element of foreign investors who would more or less, given the chance, take up more of the stocks with the view of actually reaping more rewards towards the further quarter that lies ahead.
Mm-hmm. What's your strategy within this context?
Well, most likely what I advise, I would say, is that when you look at the way it is, it's rather best to buy in batches. So you can buy small at the price that it is currently. You can say you can buy about 2,000-3,000 shares depending on the price of the counter that you're looking at, with the strategies of accumulating slowly over time, because the price changes do not differ that much. There's never that drastic loss, or lower price or drastic increase in price. It's normally gradual. So you take advantage of that.
Let's take a look at some of the stocks that have been making news. And I picked up some interesting news regarding Cooperative Bank, that it's looking to recruit Chinese-speaking executives to exploit the business in the new Chinese market. And that, a pretty interesting strategy that's evolved there. What have you made of it?
Well, if you look at going by the previous months, you notice there's been about 7 billion of Chinese investment within the local market itself. By this, I mean there are certain companies that have actually set up base here. You have the Huawei, or rather under ZTE. You have the Alkuma, who are in the electronics industry. You have a lot of Chinese construction companies actually coming in to build and improve the infrastructure in Kenya. Coop Bank has looked at it from a point of view of that, to increase, because there'll be a higher trade inflow between Kenya and China. There'll be a lot of Chinese businessmen from China wanting to understand the Kenyan market, how best can they invest. And within any form of investment, or when you set up business, the banking industry is one of the key pillars of ensuring business success. So what will attract a Chinese investor into Kenya when he realizes that a local bank has someone who's able to communicate in the same language? Mm-hmm. Because if you look at most Chinese, English is not necessarily a first language. It's normally they speak in the normal Chinese dialect of that, Mandarin being one of the major spoken dialects in China. So Coop Bank is looking at that. That's a very visionary way of looking at it.
What are you making of its muscle to actually compete? Because this is within a very competitive landscape at this stage. We've got a competitor like Standard Bank, aggressive on the continent and already holding a firm relationship with a Chinese bank, ICBC. And so that competition has got to be tough.
Well, I'd look at it at the end of the day, what will hold sway between each side having one thing or the other is that when you look at the population in China and you look at the potential for business, no one bank or no one institution can be able to tap fully. You'd be overwhelmed by the demand. So there'll be a lot to go around. Whether or not Coop Bank will be able to succeed beyond a certain extent, that is neither here nor there. But currently what looks forward is that even other key players will jump on the bandwagon and realize that this is actually an opportunity that we've overlooked. And owing to the demand, in terms of ability to supply or cater for it, you need more players in the market. So I would say it will be a fair share for everyone round.
Well, of course, we know that along with KCB and Equity Bank, Cooperative Bank has ranked amongst the favorite local and foreign investors alike. What's your view on the stock right now and where it's sitting? What are you making of current valuations?
Well, at the moment, the current valuation Coop Bank has slightly been on the higher side, being about 17.25 thereabouts. When you look at the PE, it's been more of on a higher side as opposed to being much more easy to access for just what I call the ordinary investor in the market. But be that as it may, it's a price I would recommend that anyone investing, that is a price you pay. Because if you look at their fundamentals, you look at how they've been growing over time, and if you look at the management structure, there's been, which I've always stressed about, management drives a company, looking at ideas, growing the business forward. KCB has been doing that, and it's actually turning out to be very positive. And when you look at them saying that within the last this quarter that's just about passed, that most of their revenue has actually come out from the businesses within Rwanda, Southern Sudan, Uganda. You notice that that is actually a positive trend. But because when they ventured in there, most people were a bit skeptical because there was a lot of uncertainty. But that uncertainty is proving to be profitable at the end of the day.
Of course, this bank also not sitting on its laurels. We've got Cooperative Bank creating 1.3 billion shares to raise capital. Just very quickly, your insight or your perspective on that move, and just how they're looking to raise the capital and what that's going to be plowed back into.
Well, I would look at one of the ways of rewarding and enticing more investors is actually when you offer shares, is that ability of you'll get much more as opposed to the normal means of actually raising capital. For instance, trying to get financing, which would be slightly expensive. But owing to the loyalty that has been built, and if you look at it further, Cooperative Bank has a very big base that is made up of the cooperative movement. And by this, there's a lot of minimal shareholders who would come on board through their cooperative organization or cooperative society for that matter. Then going further, expansion plans is what I tend to see further, because when you look at the major banks, the two big banks, Equity and KCB, you notice that they have a very big foothold within the wider East African market. And when they talk about a market with almost 100 million onwards kind of people, you look at that this is the only way to go. You can only expand so much within Kenya. So it's about time they looked at expanding beyond and within the wider East African community.